what does a quality job actually mean to a homeowner? Here's the first principles question behind that. What does the customer actually use to judge whether they got a great paint job? And if I had to guess, the answer more times than not is usually communication, cleanliness, and whether the crew showed up when they said they would and followed through on what they said they were going to do. Welcome back to the Elite Business Advice Podcast. My name's Chris Moore, the founder of Elite Business Advisors, the host of the Elite Business Advice Podcast. Have you ever heard of the term first principles thinking? This is kind of where you take really complex issues and just boil it down into their most basic fundamental truths, which is usually the first principles. I'm going to go through some examples today, but I think a lot of times we really make assumptions based on things that we've heard, or we're doing things the way they've always been done before. And there's a lot of power in asking yourself the simple question, why? In everything that you do in your business. If you think through, why do we do it like this? Why do we do it like that? And start asking that question, why, I think your business is going to evolve to another level, right? Again, as business owners, we talk a lot, and I've shared a lot on here, that we run. We run day to day, week to week, month to month, year to year, because we have to just put our head down and we're trying to keep all the plates spinning in the air at one time, right? Or juggling all the things, hoping nothing drops and breaks. And we don't stop and really think about this. This is why entrepreneurs don't make time to work on their business, because we get too sucked into the day-to-day in the business, right? And so this thought of first principles reasoning, first principles thinking, that's used interchangeably here, really is a tool to help us stop and work on our business a little bit, right? To think about things, to question things. I think when you get complacent, you can get stuck, arguably. This is honestly how Elon Musk built SpaceX. I've shared some stuff about Elon before on some previous episodes. I know the one we did, the North Star metric, that term came from Elon, and kind of some of the story with SpaceX, and kind of tying into what I talked about that day with their North Star metric and how you can use that in your painting company, is it used to cost NASA almost $360 million to launch a rocket into space. And just by applying first principles thinking into SpaceX and all the rocket science that goes into it, literally, Elon got that down to $67 million per launch, simply by asking the question, why? Well, why do we do it like this? And then defying the laws of physics that came behind it. And I can't speak to that part of it, but I know that it all started with this first principles thinking in every way, shape, or form of what it took to launch a rocket into space. That's why, and how, if you've heard of this, that SpaceX has the reusable boosters, and they will launch and land themselves onto a platform. Like, there's so many things behind this that he just completely redid how we always looked about space travel, right? Simply by asking why. So today I want to break down 5 areas in your business and how you should be applying first principles reasoning in your painting business and asking the question why as you think through it. So I hope it helps. Thanks for plugging in. This is the Elite Business Advice Podcast. So one problematic statement that I hear from people sometimes is I'll ask them a question. Well, why do we do it that way, right? And their answer is, I don't know. That's just kind of the way we've always done it, right? And there can be a huge problem in that thinking, right? As time goes on, as technology evolves, as your competition levels up, I think that's going to continue to be a trend in this painting industry over the next 10 to 20 years, right? Especially as a lot of the older generation is retiring, with a lot of young, sharp people coming into this with a business mind and technology first. It's going to change a lot, right? I heard a story one time, and I thought this was like a great example of a girl that was I don't remember exactly how it starts out. I think she was working on getting the ham ready for Easter. That's what it was. And that's fitting because we have Easter coming up here this weekend. It'll be a couple weeks back by the time this releases. And she cuts off the ends of the ham. And one of her kids asks, well, Mom, why do you cut the end of the ham off, right? Kids ask the question, why? That's full blown in full force in our house right now. And she said, well, that's just the way my mom did it. And of course their question or answer is, well, why? She said, I don't know, actually. Let me call her. So she calls her and she says, hey, Mom, getting the ham ready, cut the ends off like you've always done. But, your grandkids just asked me, like, why did I do that? And I told her that's because that's what you always did. And so we just want to know why. Like, why do we cut the ends of the ham off? And she's like, well, I don't know. That's what my mom always did. She's like, let me call your grandma, right? So then she calls great-grandma and asks her the question and says, hey, Mom, why'd you always cut the ends off the ham at Easter? Like, your great-grandkids are asking, and we don't really have an answer to this. Just, like, why have we done it that way? And she says, oh, because the pan that I always put the ham in was always too long, so I just cut the ends off of it so it would fit. And I love that story, even though I couldn't remember how it started there for a second, because it illustrates how you can do something for maybe a reason, right, at one point in time, and maybe 70 to 80 years later, you've passed that along to people that are still doing it the same way with no idea why it's done that way. And nobody ever asked the question, why do we cut the ends off the ham at Easter? Right? It's a fun fact. If you're doing a late Easter by the time this releases, you don't have to cut the ends off your ham unless it doesn't fit in the pan. All right. So there's my story. That's how we're kicking this episode off. I hope that was good. But it's true, right? What are the things in your life, in your business, that you're just doing because it's how you've always done them? Okay. So here's 5 areas that I think you need to apply this first principles thinking to in your business. And I got a question that we'll go through for each one of these 5. Okay. Number 1, how you price your jobs. Have you ever stopped and thought about, why do we price jobs the way we price them? Okay. Take the square foot, dollar per square foot off the table. Take the, linear foot per hour. Take all these things off and ask yourself, like, what's the basic foundation on how we should price a job? Not because of how we've done it, not because of what somebody told us we should do. Although I personally believe turning production rates into hours is the absolute number one way to do it. But I want you to come up with your own answer, right? Challenge me. But the question you should ask is, what does it actually cost me to complete this job? At the end of the day, it's what you're trying to do, right? Yes, labor, materials, equipment rental, overhead, profitability. There's things you need to get priced into it. What does it actually cost you to complete this job? When's the last time you stopped and thought about that and broke it down, maybe due to some updated overhead or profit needs, because you learned you should price your jobs to grow your company, not just to make money, okay? So ask yourself that question. What does it actually cost me to complete this job? And should I look at pricing things differently? Okay. Question number 2, or area number 2, I should say. How you find your customers. This is a good one. The question you should ask yourself is, where do homeowners go who are about to repaint their homes? Where are homeowners actually going to make the decision on who they're going to call for a quote when they're ready to repaint their house? Okay. Again, with marketing, it's easy to chase the shiny object. It's easy to hear all the noise and to, again, like, feel free to challenge anything you've ever heard from me on this show, right? Again, I'm coming at you guys with a lot of benchmark data from what we see. I can tell you that from a cost perspective and ROI, the Google local service ads and SEO with a good company are like 2 of the best top performing ROIs across people that spend money on advertising. I can tell you that. But let's boil it down to very simple logic. Where are homeowners going to make a decision, right? And a lot of the research actually shows that when you stop and think about this, when you reason from that question, you see that they're probably leveraging their network for a lot of people. They're leveraging maybe the local Facebook community group, whether it's a city, whether it's a neighborhood, right? Getting, again, some trusted referrals from people that they may know. Maybe they're looking to a real estate agent, an interior designer, another contractor they trust a lot. Like, hey, you're really good. I used to get questions all the time, right? Hey, I know you guys don't do, deck installation, but you guys are a good, reliable, professional company. Do you know somebody else that kind of embodies your beliefs and your values, right? Like, I used to get that question all the time. Studies show that like people are going there just as much as they're going to digital advertising. Now, yes, it's easier to Google it, right? I'm currently down a rabbit hole researching golf simulators, and we're thinking about putting one in our basement when we finish finishing it. And I'm so far down a rabbit hole, and like I could have called like 7 different people, but I went to Google for that one. Okay, but guess what? I'm now following back up because I'm on such a windy trail about this that I'm reaching out to everybody I know that has them and having conversations. I'm like, I should have just did this first, honestly. So where are people going? That's the question you need to boil this down to. When homeowners or GCs or commercial property managers, whatever it is that you're targeting, where are they going when they're going to look to make that decision? Okay. And then you attack your strategy from there. Number 3. This is actually what turned into one of my favorite ones. What does a quality job actually mean to a homeowner? If I had to guess, and here's the first principles question behind that. What does the customer actually use to judge whether they got a great paint job? And if I had to guess, the answer more times than not is usually communication, cleanliness, and whether the crew showed up when they said they would and followed through on what they said they were going to do. That's my logic. That's my thought. Some homeowners are going to say, yeah, we don't see roller marks and you can't have the picture framing and certain clear, obvious defects going on. But most homeowners aren't. They're going to look at the quality of your cut lines maybe 5%. And they're definitely not going to see it with the same eye that you look through it through or your best painter looks through it through. Now, again, I'm not saying do a bad job. I'm just saying I also see a lot of people waste a lot of time by trying to do a perfect job when 80% to them is like 120% to a homeowner. Right? That's the hard part about being a craftsperson sometimes, right? You see the tiny little imperfections that homeowners will never find because they are not looking at it through the same lens. And again, I'm not saying to cut corners, not saying to intentionally do a shoddy job because they'll never notice. I don't mean that. I just mean don't spend extra time doing things that homeowners will never notice because you're literally just wasting time and money, right? And so ask yourself the question, get some feedback from your homeowners. Hey, what do you use to measure the success of a great job, right? Hey, when you work with a contractor, ask people you know this question. I kind of want to now because I want to hear some feedback. What do you look for when you evaluate whether a contractor did a great job for you? Very, very little outside of, again, the obvious blunders do I think people are actually looking about the quality of the work. Right? If you're going to build a deck for me, yeah, it needs to be level and it needs to, look good. But honestly, are you going to show up? Are you going to make this easy for us? Are you going to make my life, hell in the meantime? Right? So think about that. All right. Area number 4, you should apply first principles thinking. How you onboard and train new painters. Okay. How you onboard and train new painters. To me, the question should be, what does a painter on my crew actually need to know to represent my company well on their first day on the job? Okay. I think that's a great lens to look through this at. I think you should stop and think about what do we actually need to teach them? We can teach them the difference between, ProMark 200 and Super Paint, Duration, Cashmere, Emerald, Latitude, Forte now. We can show them all that. But is that actually what they need to know to represent your company well and do a great job? Probably not, right? Arguably, I think your project manager needs to know the difference between all that. And I think, when there's different applications needed or maybe a method in which you apply something, that would be good to know. But they don't need to know the paint spec differences between Duration and Super Paint and when you use this and when you use that. No, you use it when it shows on the work order you use it. Pretty plain and simple. Right. So problems, that sounds like a really direct statement. You can't tell what personality I am. But it's true, right? Like a new painter doesn't need to know that. They need to know how to put paint on the wall. They don't need to know what product you use when. Eventually, that's going to come with time and experience, and you want them to know that. I don't need my new painter to know that. I need them to show up on time, smile, say good morning to the homeowner, and know to go in and take the outlet covers off the walls and start spackling the nail holes. That's what I need them to know. Again, high D personality coming out. All right. Things you probably need them to know. Again, checklist, SOPs, standards, expectations. And then I would say structured shadowing would be a good thing as well. Like, who they're going to be working with, et cetera. So the last area, this is a good one too. The last area that I think you need to apply first principles thinking to, why customers choose you over a competitor. Okay. We talked on some recent episodes about messaging and your why and your story and like all these different things. So I don't want to go like super deep on this. I'd rather make this a shorter episode and just can it soon. But I love the question to kind of ask here is, what is the homeowner actually afraid of when hiring a painter? Right? Let's go back into the emotion side of this. What are they feeling? What are they thinking when they're choosing a painting contractor? And again, based on some logic, based on some thoughts, based on knowing this industry for the last 16 years, I'm going to say that the answer is probably, I would boil it down to risk, the word risk, if you will. Will they make a mess? Will they disappear mid-job? Will it look good? Again, they are thinking about that ahead of time, less on the back end of it. Of what's the risk of hiring this person over this person, right? What's the risk of maybe saving $3,000 on this paint job, but not knowing if they're going to follow through on what they said they were going to do, or if it's going to only take 3 days like they said versus 3 weeks. Whereas this other company seems to be a little bit more trusting and professional and organized, and I felt a lot more credibility from them. Is that worth the $3,000 to mitigate the risk of a headache at a disastrous job? The reason this question is so important is because when you realize you're selling risk reduction as much as the painting service itself, your entire sales pitch changes. Your website should change. Your review strategy should change. What you're getting feedback and sending out should change, right? Everything changes when you understand the psychology behind how these homeowners are making decisions. And going back to your messaging, something to tie back into that episode. This wasn't even done intentionally, but as I was thinking through what are 5 areas, this was one that I thought of that would be a really good one and that we probably need to include, right? I had the same exact conversation this morning, actually, which was even more ironic as I was prepping for this episode. Maybe this is why I kind of threw this in with our business coaches. We were talking through, like, what's the decision point in which painting contractors make a decision to hire a business coach, right? What are the things that where the pain helps them realize, like what pain are they experiencing that helps them realize, I need help. I need another perspective. Maybe not even help's the right word. Maybe in some cases, I need another perspective. I need somebody that's been down this journey, right? And then we started going through the pain points and the decision points and timing and how do we build credibility and all these different thoughts as we think through marketing and sales, even for us here. I don't even really like calling it sales, truthfully, because, if we can serve and help people, we want to show up and do that. I don't have a sales team or anything crazy like I know some companies do. But for us, we kind of broke it down to first principles reasoning as we thought through a couple questions I had for him this morning about like our process and our marketing and our messaging and stuff, right? So it's funny how that comes full circle just in a completely different way. And so here's what I would encourage you. Here's your homework, if you will, if you don't mind me saying that. We call them action items with our clients. But your homework is to stop and think through and answer these 5 questions. Ask yourself why to these 5 areas of your business and think through and boil it down to the most foundational thing of what you experience in this case. What is the most important thing for your new employees to know to represent your company well on day one and set them up for success? What are your homeowners thinking when they choose you over somebody else? Where are your homeowners making decisions when they're looking for a painting contractor? What does a quality job actually mean to them? And when do they determine what's a success and what's not, right? And then, of course, the first one, what does it actually cost you to complete this job and to run your company on a monthly basis? And if you answer that, I promise you, your business will continue to evolve. And I would encourage you to then find more questions to ask yourself to keep diving in and let your business constantly iterate year over year. Thanks for plugging into this week's episode. I hope you're able to take a few nuggets away from it to implement into your business. Remember, knowledge without implementation is useless. If you're curious about what we do and how we help painting contractors all over North America, schedule a free business analysis meeting with us at www.elitebusinessadvisors.com. Our entire team of advisors have ran and managed painting companies just like myself and are here to help support you on your journey. We have packages available for contractors at every stage of business, from flying solo and just starting out, all the way to multi-million-dollar businesses. And lastly, if you loved this episode, please leave us a rating and a review. It helps others on the platform find our podcast, and it could be the best blessing that's ever happened to them thanks to you. Thanks for plugging in, and we'll see you back for next week's episode.